Okay, let's look at some sort of review of our experience of Ground Floor. I got a chance to play it with my wife. I wasn't sure, but she got no joy whatsoever out of it. And that's kind of the thing. It's not either of our type of game, and I'm not really qualified to review something of this nature. I've done a lot of Euro reviews, and, you know, when it comes to the worker placement ones, they're just not my type of game. I don't enjoy them. I look at the Euros that I enjoy, things like Imperial, Brass, Endeavor. You know, I got into the hobby with like 4 Euros that I really enjoyed, and Revolution by Tresham. And they were just great games. You know, they were just so good. And then there's others that involve aspects that maybe kind of give me a headache and whatever. Tikal definitely did, although I've had that for a while. And that was okay. I wouldn't want more than a couple of games of that nature ever in my experience, though. But I can enjoy that one, and I can play it a few times. The problem with this is, you know, I don't know how many worker placement games there are out there now, but the mechanism's dried out. You know, to me, there's maybe there's room for 1 or 2 of them in my life. This one's not bad from what I can see, but it just doesn't compare to the games that I really enjoy. And something that's vaguely, you know, it's not worker placement, but Tigris and Euphrates has the sort of, hey, I'm placing this piece here with these ideas. But it has this beautiful, you know, Knizia type design and everything to it that allows it to not just be trying to do math over, you know, and primarily just arithmetic to figure out your optimal moves. These tend to be optimization problems. It's the same thing that I griped about in a recent war game I played. Zucker, his more recent designs, and when there's too many people around in an area, too many leaders around in an area, it becomes a complicated constraint optimization problem. Honestly, worker placement games are constraint optimization problems. That's all they really are. You have a little bit of play coming in with other people, you know, being able to interfere and grab the things you want. But overall, the hard part, from my point of view, is coming up with a calculation that likely will work. And then when somebody foils that, you have to come up with a new calculation that's your best optimization under the new circumstances that maybe you didn't predict. That's just not my type of thing to enjoy. You know, it's there's not enough going on. This one has really great components overall. The board is wonderful. Tasty Minstrel makes good component games. The counters, you get a lot of cardboard in here. You know. The rule book itself, I found very much not to my taste, in the sense of, you know, the layout is like many modern Euro-type games these days, very, very much based on, hey, here's how you set it up, here's this. It's all done very pictorially, and that doesn't work well for my brain. If you're used to that format, though, I'm sure it's fine. It includes everything. There are a couple of little items where I say to myself, gee, I wish that was expressed better on the counter. In particular, the bonus, I believe, for the supply room isn't there. If you want a real review by someone who understands the type of game, I suggest looking at Slacker from Dice Tower's reviews. His review of Ground Floor really goes into the elements that your Eurogamer is going to be most interested in. From my point of view, what I'm interested in when I play a game is the story. I'm interested in a competition, but I'm not interested terribly in, a particular mechanism and how that's expressed. So I'm not going to go out of my way for like, area control games or something like that. It's just not something I particularly aim for. So I expect that whatever mechanism is chosen feels right for the game, and in this case it really doesn't. I feel like I'm able to calculate way too much. I know some people complain because there's a fair amount of luck in terms of what's going to come up here if you're relying heavily on the market. Most of the game there isn't a lot of luck in. Most of it there's very little influence of luck, but there is the possibility that you can rely on the market as to how many goods you can sell, and you can really be taking hey, I can win the game or lose it here type risk on that. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with actually is the amount of calculation that you can provide throughout most of the game. But that make it or break it risk gives you some opportunity for a catch-up type game, and it's probably the only thing that's going to allow you to, have a shot at getting back in. I think if people play fairly well and don't make stupid mistakes, which are hard to maybe identify, but like not buying additional employees early or something early enough, you can delay a little bit. As long as you don't make these really egregious errors in the game, I think everybody's going to end up pretty close to each other. Although it is definitely possible to come up with a bonus engine that works a lot better than anyone else's. And there's not a hell of a lot people can do to you once you're in that position. There's very little influence that you have. You can buy up the things that they need for it, which probably won't help you as much, unless you're configured and just directly challenging them with the same little engine. Overall, I don't see anything really negative to say about the game. Now, obviously, if you play it a lot, you might have come up with, there's 2 or 3 strategies that work and everything else doesn't. But it looks like, at least for a beginning point of view, there's a lot of different pathways to explore in order to get, to that leading point. Maybe there's too many and they're too equal in the sense that, most of them seem to pan out about the same under my play. Like I said, though, it just doesn't meet my desires for a game. If this was the only worker placement game I had, I would say, wow, that's kind of cool. That's a neat idea. But when it's sitting on top of a genre or a mechanism that's been repeated so many times, it's really hard to find enough different here. For me, probably the biggest thing is, oh look, I got these pretty little buildings that I can grow. I found the decision making a lot easier in the opposed game than the solo. Trying to juggle 6 players in the solo game was not working well at all. It might get easier having played it, again. But I have no real desire to do so. This is the kind of game that I feel has a limited number of playings. And I think most Euros do, so don't take it as too big a criticism. But it has a limited number of playings because, at least most modern Euros, because the key is to figure out sort of the game space. And once you've done that, it's over, There isn't enough luck to keep things random, and there really isn't enough strategic decision like there is in a game like Go or chess to keep people terribly interested. It's just the nature of the Euro. Now, there are some that I think shine above this, and Tigris and Euphrates is one of them, without luck, but with so much strategic depth that it just stands. It's hard to tell, but it may stand as a multiplayer Go or chess, essentially. I don't think this is in that realm. I think this is more in the realm of everybody is kind of trying to get up to speed on the learning curve, and eventually everybody kind of figures out how it all works. And that may take 5 playings, it may take 10, but whatever it takes, that's what it takes. And that's what you're going to see in most Euros, I think. You know, there's games with a lot of randomness in them that, or something like Dominion, which has a different configuration you're facing each time, which I think provide you with a lot more playings, you know, going in the 20 to 100 range or whatever before you start getting tired of it. But this, sadly, and most of the Euros that I've seen just don't give that impression. And that's fine. It's not the market they're aiming for, right? They're aiming for the market of people looking for the newest thing, the newest little twist, the newest little, you know, optimization problem in the case of worker placement that they can figure out. And, you know, maybe there's some hidden gems in here as to ideas that work together, you know, that somebody who's played it 20 times is going to see that somebody who's played it 4 or 5 times is not. But that's about all. You know, I don't think that there's much more to a Euro that doesn't introduce a lot of luck or doesn't just clearly blow you away with the wow. There's definitely a lot here. And honestly, I don't know if you can say all that much more with 18XX, but 18XX gives you that story and a richness and detail that, and a correspondence with what it's trying to simulate that give you a richer position of looking at a game. So with this, I'm essentially pushing cubes. There's, you know, it's up there with the soulless Euro batch, and everything really is there where you're focusing more and more on a constraint optimization problem. The question, of course, is, you know, how close to that is something like Coin? And that's kind of my worry there, because Coin is simulating things, but I have trouble seeing the simulation, so I end up stuck in that constraint, in a point optimization situation with some constraints, but not the same kind. It's not as clearly, it's not as clear a constraint optimization problem. There's obviously more input going into it, so that just becomes a factor in it. And it's a fairly easy one, easier to cope with, I think. This isn't a terribly painful game to play opposed. I wouldn't mind it. Having played Russian Railways is one of the more recent things that I played opposed. I'd say this is probably in that same realm. That's a very highly rated game. This one's not terribly well rated for whatever reason. I can't see much reason either way, to tell you the truth. And given, you know, the play, accept theme, you know, given sort of the player profile of the people who tend to play these games and that they play them maybe less than a dozen times, I don't see that it makes a damn bit of difference. So I doubt that there's that much more, if anything, from what I've seen of the two games, between one and the other. You know, this is a serviceable, decent worker placement game. It's got some interesting choices. What more can you ask from that type? Well, I can say, wow, there were cool stuff in the description, and you get to build the actual buildings. Maybe this is more like SimCity type thing. I always have these huge expectations when I actually go around and decide I want to buy something. And the truth of the matter is, most modern Euros just don't meet those expectations for me. So, you know, like I said, if that's your type of game, you're looking at the wrong person reviewing it. If you just want to see me grouse about things, you know, there you have it. All right.